Hello and welcome to the Black Tower. I'm your host, your guide, your brother, the sorcerer Armand Soul. All right. So it's been a while since I've done an actual video where I wasn't interviewing or discussing things with certain people. Today I wanted to bring you a video, another knowledge lecture. Today's subject: angels, demons, and elementals or elements. Pardon me. Now, that being said and done, let's get into this. Okay, so in the Simon Necronomicon, with their version of angels are the DINGIR, the gods of the heavens. Their version of the demons are the IGIGGI. And of course, they have the elements, just like we do naturally in our own system. However, I wanted to kind of go over this just a little bit with you. So, the concepts or the ideas that you need to keep in mind is what are these things? What are these powers? What are the forces? And how do they combine, intermingle, and how are they worked with? Uh, I am trying so hard to put this out there. This is a very delicate and tedious subject, but I'm going to try my best today. So just bear with me in this. Okay, so let's start with the Zekia Kampa, Ziana Kampa, spirit of the earth, spirit of the sky. And it's supposed to be the spirit of the gate of the earth and spirit of the gate of the sky. That's neither here nor there, but we're going to stick with two words: Kia and Ana. So earth and sky. Okay. All right. So to start this off, you've got to kind of understand that what they're talking about is the actual earth and everything that lies underneath the earth in the lower denser realms, and the heavens in the higher realms. That being said and done, what are the indigenous beings or spirits of these realms? So for Ana, the sky, the heavens, you have the Dingir. The Dingir are the gods of the spheres of the planets. However, Dingir is a relative loose term also for any light, airy beings, not to be confused with like fairies and stuff like that. I don't mean that kind of airy. By airy, I'm talking about lighter in energy structures. Okay, we're talking about beings of order, so forth and so on, that oversee from an eagle eye point of view, you know, the area, the outlying zone, the zones, which is kind of funny because zone nine. It's okay. Maybe that was just me. Uh, so in this sense, so the Dingir would be what we nowadays would call angels, and these airy beings, the spirit of the gates, for example, like the 50 names of Marduk are also considered airy in this sense. So they are also of the heavens. Okay. So there you have Ana, and that's took care of. Okay. And these are the angels and the gods and the spirits and deities that are of a lighter vibration. If you don't know about vibration or density or anything like that, I would seriously suggest go and Google it, do some research, do some study on it so that you can understand how they interplay and what these terms mean. Now then, let's get to the IGIGGI. Let's go to, well, first we got to start with Kia. Kia is the earth realm. It is the lowest, it is the highest in density, but the lowest vibration. Okay, that means everything is slower, more dense, more packed. Okay, so this is Kia. In Kia, we find the IGIGGI. The IGIGGI are what we would call, in today's terms, demons, which I personally don't submit to the angelic, demonic, so forth, so on. Instead, I like to think of them as different vibrational beings. So for this one, how would you go into explaining this? Well, it's kind of easy. So in the Simon Necronomicon, they talk about, the earth plane and all this other stuff, and they talk about the gate of the black. They talk about the black earth. Black earth is found in Kia. It is the home and realm of the denizens known as the IGIGGI. What are the IGIGGI? The IGIGGI can be anything from jinn to elemental beings of earth and water, so forth and so on, fire, air, but of a lower density, as I was describing. And with that in mind, notice the terms Dingir and IGIGGI. Everybody wants to put the Dingir up here on some kind of pedestal and the IGIGGI down here. And in this day and age, right now, you've got all these people, they're talking about left hand path and demonic workings and all this, that, and the other. If you were interested in that, if that is what you wanted, do. The IGIGGI are most definitely that. But now, what are the IGIGGI? The IGIGGI, in this sense, in the back of the Simon Necronomicon, Pazuzu would be an IGIGGI, Mwawa would be an IGIGGI, Lalashtu would be an IGIGGI, Lelamu, so forth, so on. I mean, just take your pick there. These are all denser beings. These are all, they are the most closely related to the earth plane that you're going to find. So when they talk about the gods being far away and forgetful, what they're talking about is the aerial density, okay, which is a lot less. They're lighter in quality. This doesn't make them good and the IGIGGI evil. Once again, you should have gone past that. That, no longer should good and evil even be in your vocabulary. But if you're still sticking to it, this is how it separates. Now, the other thing I wanted to go into was the elements. And at the end of this, I'm going to blend and mix and show you how this all works. But let's go into the elements: earth, air, water, fire. The most primal and very first of powers and forces ever created were the elements. The elements are the base primal materia. And what that means is that they're the base materials from which all things were created. So you could honestly say that the very first gods, goddesses, deities, beings whatsoever were elements. These elements are just raw power. That's all they are. They don't have an intelligence like you think an intelligence. However, from these elements came beings with intelligence. Okay? Now, so how does this actually work? So on the earth plane, on Kia, you have different realms, substratum levels, as it were. Just like in the heavens, you have certain strata, hence the stratosphere. Oh yeah. But here on Kia, on this plane, you have these sub levels, and it's noticed and it's found in the different columns. You remember before I was saying Kia Kampa, Ziana Kampa. So spirit of the earth, spirit of the sky. This is how you tap into the two different planes, is via that. But then came the next part, DINGIR Kia Kampa, DINGIR Anakampa. Spirit gods of the earth, spirit gods of the sky, right? So these are how these higher and lighter quality vibrational beings can exist on a more denser plane, okay? But how do they do this? They do this through advent of the elements. The densest of elements is found in earth and water. Earth and water are by far the densest, whereas fire and air have a lighter quality to them, energy-wise and through state of being in their places. So in the Simon Necronomicon, and I'm going to go a little bit further into this, when I say, when they're talking about the mountain of Kerr, and they're talking about Kutha and Martu and all that, you've got to understand what that is. So the very first thing that we'll enter into is Kutha, the underworld. Kutha is also the graves. And then you have Mataru, which is the oceans. Now, that's so here you have Kia and Martu. Kia and Martu, earth and the water, okay? And then you have Kutha and Mataru, which is, graves and seas. And then below that, you have Kutuleth and Marutuk, which is the grave beneath the graves and seas beneath the seas, and probably not necessarily in that order, but I'm just using this to explain this. So you can see why that these two in the Simon Necronomicon are used to work with a lower dense planes of being and so forth and so on, because see, they're not just a place where the dead abide. Because upon this plane, you've got to think, where would bodies go? Bodies either go in the earth or they go in the water, okay? And so when they're talking about the dead rising and taking over the earth, what are they talking about? They're talking about rising up from the graves, rising up from the seas. This is poetic wording to describe the raising of these powers. This can tie into Kundalini. This can tie into the Klipoth. This can tie into the Tree of Life, however you wish to look at it. All these things have their place in it. Now, for today, I'm going to focus more on the lowest substratum of Earth, being Kutuleth and Marutuk. Kuthu is the grave beneath the graves. Marutuk is the sea beneath the seas. Now, these are the primal. These are the lowest, most densest. This is where the primal urges of flesh come from. These are where the primal emotions, the raw, undulated forms come from. And with that in mind, you've got to understand that from the base, all things are risen up. No different than if you're talking about raising the dead in necromancy, or calling forth the spirit of a loved one that died, or you're talking about ancestor works, or any of this other stuff. These are where they come from. This is where their primal seed is found within all things. Because if you think about it, we are a combination of all the elements: earth, air, fire, water. Well, so are all the IGIGGI and the DINGIR, or the demons and the angels. Whatever paradigm you're working from, you have to understand that the root of every single one of them, come from a primal base. Now, this primal elemental base is what has spawned and created all these different things. These are the masters without mind. When they talk about the creeping, crawling chaos, when they talk about things that will drive man mad because they lie outside of reason and logic, this is what they're speaking of. They're talking about the most primal, raw forces, that there is no dictating to them reason or logic. There's nothing. When they talk about wolves going and hunting, and it's for food, survival, and mating, and so forth and so on, they are closest because they lack of the consciousness of like man has with reasoning and logic. They follow primal instinct. This instinct actually puts them closer to. And so when you're talking about it in magic and you're talking about predatorialism and things like this, what you're honestly talking about is tapping into these primal forces, these primal powers, these elemental makeups, the raw force power, and you're embracing them and you're bringing them into yourself so that you can act upon these forces or powers upon your surroundings, astral settings, whatever realm that you wish to look at. And with that in mind, this is how we come to understand just a little bit more, whether you're applying it to the Necronomicon or whether you're applying it to whatever your own magical practice is. These are the root elements of all of it, is it lies in the elements. So the further away or the deeper within, logic and reason does not exist. Intellect does not exist. Intellect exists in a realm of action reaction, of I got touched, I react. So it's a reactionary only thing. But from it came the seeds of reproduction, of sleep, of fighting, what was it? Eating, fucking, sleeping, protection, so forth and so on. All these things, they just keep adding up. And so that is the base of all things. So when you're talking about primal power, when you're talking about primal forces, you've got to understand that they lie outside of us. As we've evolved, we've actually lost more and more touch with our primal aspects of self. And so certain magics, like in the Sun and Necronomicon, where it's broke down, it really is. It's all there. It starts from this point where you're working with order, and then you're working through chaos, and then finally you're working with the most primal aspects of being, of self, of what crafted and created all things. These are where the old ones abide. Nyarlathotep, Yog-Sothoth, Azathoth, so forth and so on. All these beings, they abound there. And that's why it's very hard for the sorcerer, magician, practitioner to summon up some of these old ones. And the reason why is because if you don't understand their source, where they come from, you can't possibly call them, like attracts like. You have to tap into their energies to be able to bring them forth onto the material plane. Even in the Bible, when it's talked about skilled is the man who can rouse Leviathan. Well, of course, skilled, yes, most skilled, but you have to be knowledgeable first to be skilled, because you have to understand and know a thing before you start doing the workings. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to be able to read and write perfectly or anything like that, because there are people out there that can't, and yet they can work some of the strongest magic you've ever seen, because they know how to connect things. and they know how to tap into them, so forth and so on. And these are the natural instincts within man. This is where divine inspiration comes from. This is the well that we're all drinking from, that we're all pulling from. In my own workings, I've come to understand that there is that there are gates within ourselves that we have to pass before we can do certain of the workings. Now we as practitioners, no matter what path we walk, we're constantly, if it is a conscious choice or decision, we're consciously evolving and becoming through our rites, through our works. But to be able to do this, we have to understand the order of where these things come from, of what they entail, of what they are composed of. And to do this, we have to understand this. That's why a lot of the times in the Simon Necronomicon, if you were working with the ancient ones and so forth, it wouldn't be like, when you're working with the planetary gods and spirits and the airy quality of beings that abound within the heavens and the consciousness. No. To tap into that is Zikia Kappa, Ziana Kappa, the earth and sky, DINGIR, Kia Kappa, DINGIR, Ana Kappa. So you're calling upon the gods, the angels, the beings of these forces to guide you in these practices. And then when you're working with the ancient ones and so forth and so on, then you're working with the IGIGGI. And with the IGIGGI, you have to understand it's Zikia Kappa. Well, excuse me, it's not Zikia Kappa. Is it Zikuta Kappa, the Mataru Kappa, the IGIGGI Kutu Kappa, the IGIGGI Mataru Kappa. So, for lack of better words, I won't say daemon, but it's got the same thing, but it's a denser being. So maybe more like a daemon, intelligent spirit of these planes. Okay, so it's the spirit of the graves, the spirit of the seas, spirit daemon, or there's a word there, and it's leaving my mind for some reason. I don't really know why, but it is the guide of the graves, guide of the seas. So it's like a familiar entity or a familiar spirit, an intelligent familiar, an intelligent spirit, kind of like our watchers. Because remember what it said about the watchers: cease to be the sleeper of Agura. And Agura is a gigantic ocean or sea, which is really funny because it all ties in. But from the pit of ancient Holocaust, it said, so see the symbolism of water and earth and how they tie in the graves and the seas. With that being said and done, and so you would begin your calling, your working with this, and you would also end it with that. And that's how it's different. Now, a really interesting concept is that within this dichotomy, within all these things, you talk about the four elements, Siddhi, Martu, Kura, and so forth and so on, right? Well, then you have the elemental guardians or gods, north Uster, east Sed, south Lamas, west Natig. So then it's Natig and Kura, I believe, for the west. I'm really drawing a blank here, but you get my point. Mer Martu, Mer Kura, Mer Siddhi, Mer Arulu. So it's Arulu, that's west. So I'm sorry, it's been a really long morning. I've already been doing a ton of things. But the thing is that you have to understand where these beings come from. What is their primal source? So like, Ooster, north, the realm that it comes from, Natik, west, Arulu, from these great depths. So Arulu is the primal waters. Natik is the god of the western waters. And this just keeps going on and on and on and on. So that when you are literally calling and you're bringing forth these forces, these powers, these beings, so you're not just naming a name. You're not just giving a form to something. You're calling the guardian of that primal point. And this is very important when you're working any system of magic. Not just to know what it is, but you have to know its source. You can mix them later on if you know what you're doing. If you have working knowledge and skill with a said element, and you have all the elements, and then blending and mixing them. This is where the in-betweens come from. Because see, the star is not just a 4-sided, it's 8-sided star. It's the chaos, it's the primal chaos. And it is how we blend and mix these things. It's why when you call upon Pazuzu, Pazuzu stands between the south and the west, holding those winds back so that no evil or misfortune will befall the sorcerer or the magician. But see, that comes with experience and practice and study and research, meditation. All these things come into play. But then you can call yourself skilled to rouse Leviathan, see if you understand what that actually means. And, maybe in this sense, later on, once you've worked through all these, that's why it's so important to have the elemental agreements first in the Simon Necronomicon. Because you're going to constantly be using them, constantly coming to them because they are the base, they are the base, they are the base, they are the base. And I know no other way to put it but that they are the fucking base. The elements are the base. Even in high magic, low magic, the elements are the fucking base. Every single bit of it, it combines, it empowers, it strengthens, and it is ruled by these elements. So then what we have to do is when we're doing the first 4 months of the initiation into the Simon Necronomicon, and we spend a time, a perfect season of being initiated into it, starting in the north, then the east, then the south, and the west. And each time we're making a elemental pact. We're making an agreement with the element that's within us, the primal element, and then the guardian god of that quarter. Now, why is this so fucking important? Because you have to have an agreement. Because think of it more like allowing yourself, giving yourself permission to do something, to be something. Most of the time we sit around here and we allow people to oh, well, I'm poor. You've got to really change your way of thinking about it. You're not poor. You may not have money, you may not have food, but these things can be attained. But if you allow or give yourself permission to think that, then that's what you are. Instead, you have to change your way of thinking. You have to change this. You have to give yourself permission. Allow yourself to think, I am rich. And this is just an example. But this is also an example of working with North. Because North is where things grow. It's not only where things go to die. And I know they like to say the West is where things go to die. And they do to a degree, but this is a little different. From the earth comes all things, and to the earth goes all things back unto the womb. And so it passes through water into earth. That is why they use the West as the place of going to death, also because of the circuit of the sun. However, West and North are mixed, and East and South are mixed. See, these are two twin pillars in between. And then you have the other ones, the North and the East, and you have the South and the West. And this is where the corners, these are where the angles are. This isn't to try to be confusing, but there are going to be some people out there that are like, yeah, but how do you get to the angles? And I've just told you how the angles are. These are the in-betweens. Not only can you, even through low magic and witchcraft and so forth and so on, understand the Sabbats and the Esbits using it, but then you take into consideration everything the Necronomicon tries to tell you, and all of a sudden you can apply it in that manner. It's like a video I did on the Sumerian religious belief was based on agriculture. There are a lot of people that don't know about it. They're like, well, I'm not a farmer, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my goodness, you totally missed it. You totally missed it. This is where it came from. This is not what it is, and this is where it started. They were using the star signs and stuff in the seasons to grow their crops. Well, if you think about it, anything and everything that you're using your magic for, your own will, your own action, your own power and energy for, it's something you're trying to grow, right? So of course you're going to be doing this. Well, when you put two and two together and you allow it to fit in and you put it into practice, watch it. No different than a farmer growing crops, you are bringing into manifestation upon this plane through all the elemental planes, through all the area planes, through all the dense planes, your desires, your wills, your wants, your needs, and all of this. And you are crafting it, you are creating it. That's why they call it the craft, because it is where you are crafting your desire, your will, you know, and but it all comes from having to understand how this is applied. I wanted to show how the airy qualities of fire and air make up the DINGIR realm, but they also make up the lower, denser realm. Because see, here's something really funny. When we think of Earth, what we need to think of is this right here. What you're looking at me sitting here doing, and I'm sitting here looking at the screen. This is the Earth plane. This is the mid realm. Okay, and then you have beneath the Earth, which is where the IGIGGI are, and above us, in the heavens or the overworld, we have what is known as the DINGIR, and the spirit gods and the guardians and the guides and so forth and so on. We have them on each level. My own symbol, the key, that's what each of the three arms represents. It's the three sections, the three parts, and it's brought together by a single column. And that's not just all it represents, but I'm using my key as an example of there's a reason why I have three arms. That's one of the reasons it does, not the only, but that's one of the reasons. Is because it represents the great below, the great between, and the great above. And because we as magicians, sorcerers, witches, practitioners, whatever word you call yourself, we are crafting with raw primal forces and primal powers. But we have to learn how to control our everything from addictions to our vices to whatever, towards your appetites. You have to control this, and it's brought into focus with the tarot card Temperance, meaning to balance that shit. Balance between the desires, the things you want and the things that are necessary that you need. And when you find a nice balance within your own personal self and within your own personal world, you'll start to notice that an order is created and balance is brought about. And not really balance so much as harmony. Because see, then you're brought into harmony with all four elements on all three planes. 3 times 4, 12. There goes your solar year right there. And this is why I've just gone on and on about this, is because the ancient people used this for agriculture and through growing and so forth and so on, and then reflected it into their own spiritual practices and belief systems. That's where all their gods and goddesses came from. That's where all their boogeymen came from too. The things that oppose their happiness and their desires versus their needs. Both were met equally. Meanwhile, most of the time they're having to move all over the place until they found this fertile area that they could grow. And then by keeping a balance, they were allowed, every year, they would switch out crops, so forth and so on, much like we do this day and age, to maintain a PR balance of the soil so that crops would grow on it. Now, the sad thing is that over time, salts rise up. And when, and even in biblical terms, when they're talking about salting the earth with your enemies, there was a practice where they would literally, when they took over an area, they would go through and spread salt all over their field so that nothing would grow. Because how do you control a people? Starve them out to where they have to rely on you. You can use this concept in magical attacks versus others. You can also use this in understanding how the world works. It really does, because it's all about control. It's about controlling you. It's about controlling me. It's about controlling everybody. But when you take that control away, because when you develop the knowledge and the understanding of this is how it works, and then when you see signs and symbols of it, take control of it. Take control of your life. Take control of your own will, your own desires. temper that shit, balance it out, become in harmony with it. So it's more like you're harmonizing with it, not necessarily balancing it. Because balance and harmony, I know those two words get mixed up so much, but you got to think of it this way. If everything was balanced, there would be no growth. Okay, this is where chaos comes in. This is why, we use the 8-point star of Manana to show that it is order wrapped in chaos, and that chaos gives order. But you have to wield that chaos. You have to take this raw primal power force, and you have to craft it, create it into something that brings harmony, not balance, harmony into your life. And and what else could I say about that? There's not much else to say. And understanding the differences between angels, demons, and so forth, and elementals, because you check that elementals, demons, angels, and it's like a hierarchy. So in this case, we think the elemental gods, we think the earth gods, and then we think the gods of the heavens, because that's what they are, gods. Not demons, not angels, they're spirits. I like the Greek word daemon, meaning spirit. All is spirit. Even if you're thinking Hermeticism, when the all is thought, even if you're trying to blend this together, you can see its connections and how it works. So in this example, that would be called angels, demons, elements. The combination or the culmination of what I'm trying to explain is that you have less dense, dense, even more dense. And the idea is to bring harmony. And harmony is where you bring all three planes, great above, great below, great between, mix them into one, into a ball, into a circle, which is what the circle that you cast around you is supposed to represent. That you are in harmony with the great below, great between, and the great above. And everything that you work within that circle is made to harmonize with your desire, your will, your wants, needs, whatever it is that you are trying to craft, that you're trying to create. So there is no such thing as good or evil, right or wrong, left or right, anything like this. I've said this before. You have to transform the definitions that we use for things. We have to change the definitions. We have to give these words new definitions, because what you're doing is you're programming your subconscious, the garden of the gods, where the fresh earth is tilled and ready to take in the seed. And the seed is the thought, the belief structure. And then it takes root in the subconscious. And it's planted and it grows the most beautiful of fruits and trees. When they talk about the poisoned plant, the poisoned earth, what they're talking about is taking in things that are counter to it, counterproductive of what it is that you're seeking to desire to bring into manifestation. That's like saying, I want $1 million, do not want $1 million. So that creates a great in-between front, a gateway, a transition, a shift of consciousness. It's counterproductive in the creation of something if you don't know how to do it. But the reason why I brought that example up is because it's a lot like that. If you sit there and you say, I want this, there's no way I'm in the wrong social status. What? Like I said, that's counterproductive. Those are the kinds of seeds that strangle out the rest of the plants and trees that you're trying to grow. Garden of Gods is the subconscious and my own personal belief structure system. It is where the Garden of Eden never died, never went away. It is within us. We were never kicked out. It just transitioned. It went from being a place we were in to being within us as we were created and made. This is also where I get the concept of the Tower of Babel as being the Black Tower, the Tower of Thoth. It is the exact same thing. I've shifted and changed it, made it into something that works for me, made it into something that works for others. Because, we are rebuilding an ancient world, not an old worn out system that failed and had its time and didn't work out. No, but you take the design and you give it new, fresh ideas, new power, new energy, new direction. Because see, we're not trying to mimic a failed past. We're creating a new future. And to do that, all things must die. All things must. That's why this is like a death card from hell. But the thing, and literally, that's funny, hell. One L, not two. Fuck the Christians and their screwed up place of torment. Fuck them, make it happen. Ain't where I'm going. But the thing is this is how we combine and mix and build. And with that being said and done, I wish each and every single one of you out there peace, blessings, and power. Till next time.